excuse me, didn't a foreign military operation just come into our state and drop bombs and leave and no one knew about it for 90 days? Oh no, it wasn't a foreign military operation, it was the Maryland National Guard. Well, why the hell didn't anybody know that? Could have been Russian MiGs. Came in and dropped bombs over a desolate area of Arizona and then they left. What? Some of you may know that I've been involved in this field for a long time and that I actually do other things in the daytime. And in the UFO field, sometimes I've been viewed as a believer, but to those outside of the field, frequently I'm viewed as a skeptic and an optimist at the same time, so the term skoptimist is sometimes used for me. And in the Phoenix Lights case, that is the circumstance that came about for me, being optimistic that something very unusual had happened, but being skeptical about just accepting all of the video information at face value for what the witnesses had described. In testing the images, I don't really start off testing the images. I start out extracting data and defining exactly what is in the picture. By defining the characteristics of the nature of the videotape itself, the vertical interval, the subcarrier, the blanking pulse, all the things that are in this little black line. If you move the picture up, there's a black line in between there. Provides us some very interesting data, first of all, about the characteristics and the strength of the signal. The second aspect is studying the picture itself. A lot of the work that we've done, and some of the people in this room have worked with me for many, many years, the projects that we do can be considered as confidential, classified, nobody's business, or sometimes they are very public and very high profile. Nonetheless, we have access to very precise tools, very leading edge equipment, and most important, a whole lot of smart people that we meet with all the time. And we can call upon experts in this field as we have done for a long time. So as we got involved in the identification of the objects that were in all of the video, that meant studying the lights on the horizon, city lights, street lights, airplane lights, unknowns. We just extract the data, and you do the best that you can with the best available tools, comparing apples and apples. Controversies always come up about the quality of the testing and the quality of the procedures and all of that. You know what? I don't care what those people say. I have a job to do, and I stay focused on that. Within those boundaries, sometimes let's call them limitations, of what the experts have advised me are the potentials of testing and study, I end up with an array of information. And the information then becomes useful to try to get a match of objects that are in the video with objects that we already know what they are. City lights, street lights, quartz lights, flame, moon, sun, stars. We know the characteristics of those objects. Not only do we know the characteristics of those objects when viewed by telescope or photography where we have a wide dynamic range, we also know their characteristics on videotape, and different kinds of videotape and different kinds of cameras. So when we can't get a match on a particular object, we set it aside. When we're studying a variety of lights in a picture, such as the lights of the city of Phoenix, stars, airplanes going by, and unknowns, we don't identify them as what we believe that they are. Object number 1, object number 2, object number 3, object 85, object number 115 in each picture. Sometimes a series of frames in a row, but remember there are 30 frames a second, 60 fields a second to deal with, and we're dealing with videotape images that are between 2 and 5 minutes long. It's a lot of frames to gather data. One very interesting thing began to pop up, that there were people that were claiming that these were flares. Okay, let's go shoot flares. Compare with the same camera. Compare apples and apples. Let's compare the flares. Meanwhile, we have hundreds of witnesses that had seen other instances of objects in formation that night, but the focus seemed to be on what the public was seeing, and that was the videotapes. So attention was put on those. Well, I couldn't get a match on some objects in a particular videotape. Set them aside. Went on to the next videotape. Couldn't get a match on some objects in that videotape. Went to the next videotape. Couldn't get a match on some objects in that videotape. Okay, let's go back to tape 1. The objects we can't get a match on are the string of lights. Next video, same thing. Third video, same thing. We can match other lights in the video, but we can't get a match on the incredible object that everyone was describing. Meanwhile, the controversies were coming up about he said, she said to me, he said to me, etc. Sometimes reminds me of junior high school. But, as you all know, many of you being investigators, most of you, that happens. And you get distracted into dealing with all of that and examining more details that come up. Well, a curious thing began to reveal itself, and that there was absolutely no evidence at all whatsoever that these were flares. But there was a very local group that was claiming that there was, quote, evidence. I'm talking about evidence that would work in a court of law. Not hearsay, not he said, she said, that they probably did land at 8:30 after shooting off the flares at 6,000 feet, or maybe they were up in the air at 10 o'clock and had shot them off at 6,000 feet. Excuse me, didn't a foreign military operation just come into our state and drop bombs and leave, and no one knew about it for 90 days? Oh no, it wasn't a foreign military operation, it was the Maryland National Guard. Well, why the hell didn't anybody know that? Could have been Russian MiGs. Came in and dropped bombs over a desolate area of Arizona, and then they left. What? Oh, no. What it really was while a V-shaped experimental trilateral commission experiment aircraft was flying over the city, the Maryland Guard and the National Guard didn't know anything about that, but what they had to do was drop their flares and hurry up and land at Davis-Monthan. Oh, wait a minute. Is this Mad Magazine? Who's writing these scripts? We look at the evidence in the pictures. Then let's go to human logic. What are people thinking? There's a guy in the tower at Sky Harbor, and he sees lights up there and nothing on radar, then has to admit, as do the other aviation personnel in this state and county and city, that a foreign military operation came into our state and dropped bombs, flares, into our state and left. Now, that's the kind of thing that you would think somebody would want me to prove didn't happen. Not find evidence that it did happen. Who's thinking that? that a foreign military operation happened in our state and dropped bombs and left, and no one knew for 3 months. Huh. All this is going on while testing the video. Well, why don't we look at a little bit of the testing about the video, because I know we're going to drop into the controversy about it by the end of this evening, which is what we're here for, is to spend a day and build up to a debate, right? Which is probably going to happen in about a half an hour. Let's jump right to a piece that aired on the Discovery Channel twice. Talk about this after it finishes.
Witnesses saw a V-shaped object fly over the state of Arizona. 90 minutes later, hundreds more observed a formation of eerie lights hovering over the city of Phoenix. Despite clear photographic evidence of these events, there was no official investigation. Many eyewitnesses turned elsewhere for help. Village Labs is a computer visual effects design firm operated by Michael Tanner and Jim Dilettoso. In addition to their work for films and television, Tanner and Dilettoso have carefully studied reports and analyzed photographic evidence of many UFO sightings. They have received a great deal of media exposure for their various investigations, and as they are located in Phoenix, they became a natural place for concerned residents to turn.
We're a lab. We're just like a police lab. We're just like a medical lab, where professional investigators send us their evidence. And we've looked at hundreds and hundreds of cases where the evidence that we get is film or video. Thanks for coming to the Phoenix Lights briefing number 4.
In town meetings like this, eyewitnesses finally found someone who would take them and their sightings seriously.
It wasn't anything I'd ever seen before, because the lights were extremely bright, white lights, and there were 5, because I distinctly counted them to make sure that there were 5 lights.
Tanner and Dilettoso began their investigation by conducting a series of discussion groups with eyewitnesses to the events.
If it was helicopters, these people, either they were connected with a bar or something like that, or they were really super, super excellent flyers, because it wasn't doing any of this, it wasn't doing any of that, it wasn't doing any of that. It was like locked.
Although many aspects of the eyewitness reports were the same, there were some discrepancies between accounts.
We looked at it for a couple seconds, and then I realized that I had my telescope out. So I pointed my telescope at it, and at that point I noticed that they were airplanes.
I did not see airplanes. I watched this thing come at me, great distance, and it took a long time for it to even arrive. And if these guys...
The witnesses represent the total cross-section of our society here. We have truck drivers, we have doctors, we have lawyers, we have retired military, and they're all genuine.
Have you ever seen any kind of lights like that on an airplane?
Never seen anything like this before, ever. Anywhere.
They're just simply ordinary people having extraordinary experiences, and they're sharing those with us. You saw the light.